Today I have a super special thing to show you. This is a video about our outdoor wood boiler. I made one a year ago. Actually, I made two of them because I had a lot of questions about the first one. And that was over the winter when everything was running. Right now it's October, it's a beautiful day, but we're gearing up for the winter to get here. And we have a lot of maintenance to do. And I wanted to show you at least 20 secrets that what makes this outdoor wood boiler what it is. Now, we built this thing, going on 15 years ago now. Built the whole thing out of 1/4-inch steel. I didn't want to do stainless steel. This way it was nice and easy for me to weld this and keep everything easily contained if I had a leak. I didn't want to do spray foam short of just the outside around this. I used regular insulation, again, so I could easily get to a spot that was leaking and do a weld without having to mess up this whole fancy spray foam stuff. So, let's keep moving on. I did have to make a list because I have so many secrets and so many tips on this that I really wanted to show you. And this particular thing, man, I was spending about $2,500 a year on propane to heat my house. So you do the math. 15 years of $2,500 a year, that's like, I don't know, like $37,500. That's a lot of money to go buy toys with as opposed to just paying it on propane. Yeah, I'm out here and I have to cut a lot of firewood, but I'm saving a lot of money. And you know what? It's keeping me in shape, you know, keeping me young and fit, and it keeps you outside in the middle of winter time when you don't want to be outside anyway. So, one of my biggest first tips that I can give you about building a boiler, this door. Now, most of them have a kind of a smaller door to them. This door is 2 feet by 2 feet. So, with that in mind, you can put chunks that are this big in there. Ones that have so many knots and twists and stuff coming out of them, you're not going to be able to split that wood or deal with it or get it in there. So you just take it and you put the piece right in the boiler, you open the door, and in you go. Now, another big tip. I had quite a few questions about this pipe. Okay, before it was always covered with ashes, because I let the ashes become up to here as the season goes on. Well, that particular pipe there, I run the water through it from one side to the other. I'll explain exactly how that works in a minute. But the coals are able to sit on top of these pipes and really heat the water. And it kind of makes a funny bonging noise as it's going through the thing. I did put little supports underneath this so it carries the weight of logs being thrown in there without crushing, or, well, it's not going to crush, it's gas pipe. At least twisting it and opening my joints. Welded it into the sides, and it's been working pretty well. I did that improvement, let's say 4 years ago, and every year I try to make one slight little bit of an improvement to this boiler. Another improvement I made was adding this dampener to it. I used to just have two tiny little cat eyes here. So I decided let's make a bigger hole to it, and this can be adjusted. And then you can control the dampening and how much air that flows to the boiler to actually control your heat. It depends on the temperature. I kind of just control everything by this and how much wood I put into it, and that determines how much heat I get out of it. Another thing, let's see. This boiler overall is 4 feet by 4 feet, and then inside it is 3 feet by 3 feet roughly. And you can see it has a whole water jacket. There's a ceiling and there's a good foot of water space up above it. The sides here, right where the foam is basically where this water jacket is that runs around the outside. So, the big thing, big door, a simple little thing here. Again, I don't have a fan that power vents this, so it's just controlled by that. A nice feature about that is if you lose power, you're not so concerned about making sure the boiler has electricity to run the fan. Big part of that is I don't run antifreeze. That's a huge secret right there. Now, what are you going to do? This holds about 200 gallons of water in it. So if I was to buy antifreeze and I had 200 gallons of antifreeze, not only is the antifreeze going to be a corrosive agent against my steel and eat my steel, how do I get rid of 200 gallons of antifreeze? I don't even want to know. But this, if I have a problem, just drain the water out and you're done, and then fill it back up and go. Now I have a simple thing inside. You turn the spigot and it adds more water right to the system. I don't have to put anything in any other way. Piece of cake. So, also, let's see, I did copper pipes on this. Now, you can see some of them down in here, and the reason that I did copper pipes was that if I have a problem, I can just take a blowtorch and heat those pipes up and get the water moving again. Haven't had that issue, but it was nice. I guess when I did this 15 years ago, PEX was kind of not really available in the same sense that it is today. And the kit for doing that was way more money than I wanted to spend to do it. So I ran copper lines. I did 2 1-inch lines for the hot water, the boiler itself. Then I did 2 3/4-inch lines for the domestic hot water. Now that's what you're looking at right here. Is this line runs through there with a couple of coils zigzagging back and forth inside here, and it comes back out here. Now that runs back through, and you know, it takes the water from say 50 degrees and heats it to maybe 80 degrees before it goes into a hot water heater. But that 30-degree temperature differential is saving you propane to heat the water to what you actually need it at. So that right there is a big money saving factor on this. Another thing I did about this boiler, big secret here, is I started out making this as a pressurized unit. I figured it needed to be that. I didn't know much about it. I studied a bunch of them, and that was what I discovered. So what I did is I put a pressure gauge on here, and as you could see, as the smoke came up, it eventually melted the gauge and was pretty much useless anyway. Reason being, if you look, I left this piece of plastic so I could show you. That's about how much this top bubbled up when I ran it as a pressurized unit. Now, I built the whole thing out of 1/4-inch steel. The top is only 1/8-inch steel. I figured, it's not holding any strength, whatever. So what it did is it went, once we added a pound of pressure. You wouldn't think a pound of pressure is much, but when you add it to that whole volume, it's like, holy cow, that is a lot of pressure. Basically, I had a bomb sitting in my backyard, and if there was a problem with it and anything happened, this thing was gonna blow up. So you know what? That was it. No more pressurized unit. We got rid of that, and I added a pressure relief valve, which I had in there anyway, but what I did is I rigged it so it stayed open all the time with a stick, and it can't ever be closed. There's also a little slit in the back right on the top edge, so there is no pressure. There's no way it can ever, even if that closes, it's still not a pressurized unit. Okay, it may boil away a little bit of my water, but I only run really no hotter than 150 degrees anyway, so I'm not really simmering away that much water. You turn the knob on a little bit here and there through the winter. It adds what you need, and you keep it going. And you can tell, if you start to lose heat throughout the winter, it just doesn't seem right, you add a little more water, and there it is. The other factor, if you start to lose heat in the middle of winter, what it could be, most likely, is your chimney. Now, if you look at that chimney, it is pretty clogged up right there. Let me take you around the back and I'll show you what happens here. Now, with this chimney, what I did is I used to run the 8-inch pipe, and it was just a single piece. It would get you about 2 seasons and it would rot apart. Then I tore apart a townhouse, and inside the chimney, it had this double-walled pipe, and I figured, well, rather than throw that out, I'll take that and use it. Made a bigger hole. It's nice, because then you can touch this. It's not even that hot on the outside. And you're getting a lot hotter heat on that inner chamber of the chimney to burn away more of your creosote. So what I did is I have this inner pipe. You can see it's just sitting there. It's attached. It's not even attached at all. The pressure sits right. There's a tiny gap there. But if your flow is correct with this, no smoke comes out of here. It might draw a tiny bit of air through it to help it go. Works great. Awesome feature about that. You just do that and it's out of your way. And you could see all this creosote that's accumulated in there. All this will get cleaned out, and that'll make your boiler work so much better. You may have to bang on the chimney, take it out every once in a while and clean it. What a difference. Now, rather than just throw that stuff out, just take it and throw it back in the boiler, man. It burns right up and adds more energy to you. So you can see here, I have my supply lines. Now, most people think, okay, heat rises. So you'd want to have your hottest stuff at the top. Not what I did here. I ran everything backwards. I ran the water comes in at the top. It has to flow through the whole thing, and the thermodynamics of it all make it circulate, because heat's rising, but the cold's coming in the top. It's forcing it to mix itself up. Same with those pipes that are running through the inside. They're very hot, and it makes it stir itself and heat itself up. So those two coming in there, and then they come out down here at the very bottom, the lowest possible point. Now what that does is that creates a hot spot. Right here in this bottom corner, kind of pretty close to where that pipe is the hottest point of your boiler. You'll figure that out when you start to do it and you use it. You'll find out where you want to keep your sweet spot. Now what that means, if you build your fire over here, it doesn't really heat up everything. You build it over here, oh my God, that water coming out of there, it can be 30 degrees. Well, you don't want to be 30 degrees, but 50 degrees everywhere else. Coming out of there is about 150, right at that spot every time, right before it goes in the house. As long as you don't get it too hot for your pecs, you're good to go. I haven't had any issue because I run quite a bit of copper until it gets in the house, and then it hits the pecs, so it has that cool down. and I don't think I've ever been over 180 at the most. And like I said, I try to run it as close to 150 as I can. It seems to give you a lot of heat. Unless it's really hot or warm outside, you won't need so much. Okay, let's debunk a myth about these real quick while I'm on this subject, and it just struck me. Oh, I can load it up and it'll burn for 3 days. Okay, if I load this up and let it smolder, yes, it'll work for 3 days, but you only get X amount of heat out of a piece of wood no matter how you burn it. If you burn it fast, it goes quick, but you get 100,000 BTUs out of it. If you burn it really slow and let it smolder for 3 days, you still only get 100,000 BTUs out of it, but it's spread over the course of 3 days. So if you need heat, it's not going to burn for 3 days. You're going to be out here 3 times a day, 3 times at least. First thing in the morning, you come out, you move all the coals, and you put them in the right pile. You add your new wood, build it up, and you go to work, whatever, you do your thing. Come back at the end of the day, you know, stir it up again, add some more. You're good until you go to bed. And then when you go to bed, you want to make sure everything's good. You load it up really good, and that's your day. I mean, it's pretty simple, but it gets you outside, and you are messing with it. And if you don't do that, yes, it'll die down. Then it'll take you effort to get it started again. And you don't want to do that. You want to just keep it always going, burning right along. I mean, this usually burns for 8 to 9 months out of the whole year. And it's kind of crazy to think, you know, I built something that burns that long, and I could see why that could be intimidating to a lot of people to build something that's going to burn in their yard for 8 months out of the year. But everything is metal, so it's not going to burn itself. Even this insulation, you know, it gets smoky and a little bit of soot on the top, it still doesn't burn. I had a can of fireproof spray foam that I just used up just to make a little bit of a difference and help improve this, and I'm sure that added a slight R value to it. Does make a difference, does help. Let's see. Okay, so we had our big chimney, we have our hotspot, electricity. Now, this is a nice little feature here, just to have a light. I at least ran that wire when I had the trench open. If you're going to run a power vented fan on this or a dampener unit, you're going to need electricity. Again, I didn't want to do that because if the power goes out, you're in trouble. Now, I do have 2 circulator pumps that do run on electricity. What I did, they're inside the garage. I hooked both of those up to plugs, so I can plug them into my outlets instead of hardwiring them in there. Perk of that, the power goes out, you just unplug them and plug them into an extension cord and a tiny generator, and your whole house is being heated. And we can heat that. I mean, we have a little Honda 2200, and that's a perfect generator to do way more than just what I need with 2 little, I believe they're only 10th horsepower pumps anyway. So I could hook it up to an inverter and a car battery and still heat my house and not have to worry that the boiler, you know, doesn't have electricity. Oh my God. And again, when you're not running antifreeze, you can't shut this off. I mean, well, you can. There's a trick. I'll show you that as another secret right there. You can shut this off in the middle of winter with no antifreeze on or in it. The trick to that, I have a propane backup system. Originally, when I built the house, I had a propane heating system for the radiant floor heating. But again, I was spending $2,500 a year, and I couldn't believe that. So buying the steel and building this became a logical answer to it. The perk of still having that old system, all this water gets heated up, goes into there, and from there, it could be heated more, but that's very rare that I have to do that. I actually have it set up so if all of a sudden a cold morning, I hear that hot water heater fire up, okay, the boiler's not working right, something's wrong, it's making supplemental heat. Why? However, if I go on vacation, I just leave the water circulating and the water heater on to heat the water, and okay, yeah, the house will cool down. It'll get, I mean, it's been as low as 40 degrees in there, but nothing froze. And water still was flowing through here. This is actually acting as a radiator for the outside world. You're losing efficiency, but you're on vacation. You're spending a couple bucks in propane, and your peace of mind that your boiler's not going to freeze just because you turned it off. Granted, I'll leave a big raging fire, but that'll die down after a day or two, and then starts to cool off. But that supplemental heat really makes a difference and helps you out. As far as heat, your best bet, you need good dry firewood. Now, the more it seasons, the better it is, and the better heat you get. If you're burning wet wood by any chance, it's going to sit there and smoke, and it's going to smolder, and you get almost no heat from it. One of the perks, these big chunks. You throw this big chunk through this door, and then you take all these little pieces and you throw it around there. And this will burn for days. It'll take time to smolder. Your little pieces, they add your instant heat and your instant fire to it. Works very, very well. Let's see. The funny thing, when you're burning wood here, you can see this little pile. This is my little metal scrap pile. And I found it comical. I keep throwing the pieces in here because I like seeing what I come across. Like I was burning a dresser. Here's what's left of the drawer slide from the dresser. And you'll burn all kinds of stuff. If you can fit it in the door, why throw it out when you can get free heat from it? Even these little bottles, all those manage to go through there somehow. And it burns everything. Another funny thing under here, if you look, the cat likes to live under here. And it's a really cool little spot. I mean, I have an outdoor cat. You know, it was peeing everywhere, so it had no choice but to come live outside. And I mean, it's got to be 100 degrees underneath this boiler year-round. So this poor cat that's stuck outside in the snow has an awesome spot as far as a cat goes to live under. And this year I'm going to put extra insulation under here to really help push up the heat. The fact that I don't have a water jacket on the bottom, I wasn't so concerned with it. But it will make a difference. And once there's a pile of ashes in here, those ashes actually insulate everything and keep the heat from going down. Works very, very well with that. Okay, next, like I said, the insulation. I have some of this off right now because I'm doing some maintenance, getting it all ready for the next season here. And I will be putting new insulation on every once in a while. The key with the fiberglass, it doesn't burn. You use spray foam, it could burn. I was afraid of that. But this whole boiler, it doesn't get hot anywhere except for right here on this edge where the box is. Everywhere else is water cooled, so it never gets over 150 degrees. You can just touch it. You're fine. It's kind of a nice little thing. Now, the insulation, yeah, it falls down. You need to do some stuff every once in a while to make it a little better. It's kind of hard to see in here what you're at, but I'll stuff new stuff in there and make it work very well. Okay, what else do we need to touch on about this system here? Oh, let's see. The relief valves, those are a big thing. The temperature, a propane torch. I mentioned using a torch to thaw out the pipes should I need to. Well, best thing I learned, you can come out here every once in a while, especially this time of the year in the fall. You're going to be building a lot of fires. You only need to fire for maybe a day, and then it takes 3 days. Your house warms up, and it takes 3 days to cool back off. I have radiant floor heating that runs through this, and that goes through a concrete floor. And once you get that heat sink warm, it just keeps the whole house warm. So again, it's every couple days you're out here building a fire. So if you want to mess with a fire over and over and over again, you're crazy. You'll learn really quick. Get yourself a propane torch. You build a little thing and all of a sudden the thing is going. And okay, it costs you a nickel for the propane, but it's well worth it in the time as far as it takes to get it up and going. Now, a couple other things. The clean out, I usually let this go all winter long, and it'll have a pile of ashes a foot deep. And it's kind of neat that you could put that many ashes in this boiler and only deal with it once a year. Nice little perk to the whole thing. I also did 2 other things here. These are kind of unique little tips. Now this thing down here, I haven't actually hooked this up, but what this is this used to be a water injection system into a heating, air conditioning system in a house to add humidity to the house. I tore that out. I mean, you can see it's 1970s color. My thought was, why don't I hook that up to be an oil injection system? So I can take used motor oil, put it through here, and just push a button, and it'll squirt right into there. This thing, it gets so hot. If you throw a tiny bit of oil on top of these coals, boom, instantly that lights up. It burns so clean, so hot. And if you're going to bring your oil to be recycled somewhere, what do you think they're doing with it? They're just burning it for heat for their shop. So why don't I burn it for heat for my house as opposed to that? I go through quite a bit of oil around here. It's quite a bit of toys and cars. Another contraption. This here started to try to build a gasifier. Now what this did, this tied into an old pipe I had, came into this, cooled down, and then the vapor and the smoke, well, you really want the unburned fuel and gases would come down into this generator and, well, run and make power. Started working on that a while ago. It gets tough to work on because the boiler's really only running when it's cold outside. So you kind of get cold and you kind of get bored of it, and it gets tough to figure out. Maybe I'll finish that up. But down here, I'll pull this off because I really want to do this again. This insulation is shot. It's been a couple years, and I'll show you what we're looking at. You can see the pipes, the 2 supplies, the 2 domestics right here. And yeah, this is, and then the wire coming through it all. But I'll wrap all these pipes here, put new insulation on, and that's all it takes, a little bit. It makes a big improvement. I kind of, like I said, try to do one little thing a year, and a little bit here, a little bit there. Really adds up and makes this better. Like this year, This piece finally rotted across here and snapped, and the roof moved a little bit, so I had to put a new piece in to bring it all together. But that's about it. I mean, I haven't had to do much of anything. This is 15 years now of heating the house. You can't beat that. It's awesome to have that kind of stuff. So again, I know I had a lot of questions on these pipes. The cold water is coming in up on the top there. Some of it will come down here and you'll hear it boom, boom, as it like almost does like a water hammer sound. And it's kind of neat. You're like, oh man, but it works really well and it stirs that water up. It makes it very, very efficient. At least for a homemade boiler. I'm pretty sure at this point, okay, the door. I made sure when I built the door, it's thick, it's insulated in between that. We don't want to lose heat coming out this way. We want to push as much as we can that way. Simple little latch for it. That's all you need. It's not going anywhere. It's never open. Done. I did have a gasket that I was putting around this. Found out it was better just leave it off. It worked better. It added that little extra airflow periodically to it. Made a difference. Now, one of your best friends for this boiler is going to be this shovel right here. Just a plain, ordinary shovel. You can dig right in there, get to these ashes, stir things around. You move chunks around with the fire. Works great. Would not trade that. That has been the most useful tool to add to this boiler since... Man, I tell you, I think I've pretty much touched on all my little secrets here. If you look at them all up, God, there's got to be over 20 of these secrets. And that's a big deal when you're talking about one of these boilers and what it can do for you in your house. If you have the right property, the right location, they're worth getting. I know if you have a tiny quarter-acre lot and you're in town, don't get one. You're going to have really mad neighbors in a really mad town. You're going to smoke out intersections, and it's not right. And again, if you're burning wet wood, you're really going to be making a lot of smoke. You can clearly tell when it's going good and when it's not. It's kind of funny. I know in this chimney, it's a little crooked now because I just bumped it in there. But this thing will get full of creosote, and every once in a while it'll light on fire. It sounds like a jet engine, and you'll see flames shooting out the top of it. At that point, I just open this up and let it draw as much air as I can. I don't care how hot that gets. I want to burn all that out of there. If it's tied to your house, you're going to burn your house down. Out here, it's all metal. I have nothing to really worry about. It works really well. It cleans it out, and then, okay, now I know the chimney's working better, and you're getting your proper draft. Without the proper draft going out that chimney, what ends up happening? Every time you open the door, lots of smoke comes out through here. You want to get a good draw through there. You don't really need a lot through here. That will pull the most, and that's, you kind of pull it all through the system. It's kind of how I set up my circulator pumps. I have it pulling through the system, and it works really well. Kind of like I said, running backwards with the cold coming in the top as opposed to cold going in the bottom. Even if this thing drops low on water, the water comes in and you'll hear it sometimes. You'll hear it running and you're like, okay, if I can hear water draining almost like a waterfall, that means the water level's here. I need to add water so it fills it back up so you don't hear that splash. Again, it'll keep running all the way until there's no water left in it before it runs out of water. Luckily, I haven't had that problem because I don't want to crack the boiler. God forbid I get it that hot. Whew. Pretty sure that's it for the boiler. If you have any more questions on this thing, feel free to shoot me a message or, add some comments. Please like and subscribe. This is a big deal here. I mean, I'm showing you some valuable tips and information, especially if you want to build a boiler. Like I said, the whole thing is 1/4-inch steel. It weighs about 2,000 pounds. 2,000 pounds is a lot to deal with, and it was a ton of welding. I mean, a whole bunch of welding. The fact that it's 2,000 pounds alone, we first put this out here, it was January, and I had a couple bags of Sakrete, just threw them together quick, set this on the pad. I tell you, come April, that pad was all deformed, the whole thing kind of crushed down like that, and we had to take the boiler off and build a real pad. Now, we built this pad 8 inches thick, it's been solid as anything, and we left the wood running around the outside of it, just because we figured, okay, when we reset the boiler, we're going to bang into the edges of it or whatever. And God, 15 years ago, this has been on here and it still hasn't rotted. It's just regular wood. Again, like and subscribe. Mr. Brian's Amazing World. We put a simple little tin shell over the whole thing. For a couple of years, I just ran it as the boiler. And with a little bit of insulation, whatever, it got snowed on, fine. Until I got around to the shell. Again, every little bit helps. I'd like to make these panels here for it. But the reality is they're going to be black. So this white boiler, I mean, you could see some of the soot running down as the smoke gets up there, condensates and drips down. It happens. Again, if I build this whole face, it's probably going to look worse than it actually does. And, well, it's hidden behind all this stuff anyway, so you can't see it. Kind of funny that I had a little maple tree pop up here. And I remember when this thing was this tall, and you'd walk through and you'd bump it. And it's like, man, I can't believe that's still alive. You open a door, the door almost gets to it. All of a sudden, a pretty good sized maple tree growing right next to this thing. And you'd think it would have killed it. But it's kind of neat to watch it grow and survive with all this going on. But again, these have been the secrets, and they're a big deal. I mean, that's what's made this work as well as it has. I would like to have an air system to it so I can kind of push a button and really get this fire going quick if I need to. But again, I don't really want to run that risk of needing electricity all the time. Works just perfect the way this is. And that's, you know, that's it. That's all I have on this boiler. But the key, when you're doing wood, make sure you don't get hurt. One injury and you're better off just turning the thermostat up and paying for oil. I mean, come on, yeah, it's $2,500 a year, but you'll spend that pretty quick at the hospital if you hurt yourself, you cut your finger off, you smash yourself, you miss a bunch of days of work because of it. Other than that, don't be stupid and have a good time. Make sure you like and subscribe. Mr. Brian's Amazing World, you have a great day, and go build yourself a boiler.